Welcome to Michael Jackson live in Apollo 2002 analysis, A Night at the Apollo. Welcome Michael Jackson fans. Today we're going to take a really in-depth look at Michael Jackson's performance on the 24th of April 2002 at the Apollo Theater Harlem in New York City. Now, this was Michael Jackson's last proper performance that he ever did. And I think what I'm going to end up doing is probably making two videos for this, because we really want to take an in-depth look at the whole show, music, choreography, dancing, staging, vocals, and all the stuff around it, costume. So I'll probably end up splitting it into two. But let me give you a little bit of an overview of the show, because there's not actually that much accurate information about the show, and there's not even that much footage about the show. So here goes. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe by clicking the button down below, because we've got so much more to come every week. And I want to thank my subscribers and people that comment. I really appreciate it. So thank you. Okay, so this was Michael Jackson's last proper show. It was on the 24th of April 2002. It was 4 days after his performance on the other side of the country, where he performed Dangerous at the 50th anniversary of American Bandstand. So this was like a promotion for Invincible, really. It really was his last proper show, and it was a good show. Now, We Are the World doesn't really count as a show. I mean, it was more of an appearance rather than a performance. I mean, depends how you want to look at it, but in Michael Jackson fans' eyes, I don't think that can be classed as an official performance, but especially it was an appearance. So this was his proper stage finale. Now, let's take a closer look at the show. It was called A Night at the Apollo, and it was at a very famous theatre in Harlem, and they have a really cool night called Amateur Night. They still have it, where performers would come on, and if they weren't very good, they'd be blasted off the stage. And this was just brilliant. So there's a lot of history to this theatre. Now, this was a DNC fundraiser basically for voter registration. Now, it was a democratic thing. Now, what that was, it was this. It was to raise money for people to make a drive to promote voting. Now, the theory is that Democrats, so people on lower incomes with harder lives, so to speak, they vote Democrat rather than Republican. So it's in the interests of the Democratic Party to increase the voting pool, because then it will benefit them. That's kind of roughly the theory behind it. So this was a fundraiser to raise money to get people to vote, basically. And they raised $2.5 million. Now, what you might not know is this was actually broadcast live on the internet on a webcast. It was one of the first webcasts, and I think it was the first government webcast. So if you were lucky enough in 2002, you could have checked it out live. Now, it was introduced by Chris Tucker, and it was actually really, really funny. Bill Clinton sat in the audience for the whole show, except when it came to introducing Michael Jackson. He came up on the stage and introduced Michael Jackson. Now, Chris Tucker, as you know, is always so funny. He made quite a few Michael Jackson jokes, and one of them was, Michael, give me a call. I went to pick up your dry cleaning and I've got your red socks, and it was quite funny, actually. So it was a full show with lots of different performers. Tony Bennett, the Winans, the Boys Choir of Harlem, and obviously Michael Jackson. And he also had some special guests appearing too. He performed Dangerous, Black or White, Heal the World, and then the History Tour teaser was also played on the video screen behind him. Now, I'm going to put a video to what was published on my blog, so check out the link below. It was a small portion of every song performed was broadcast on the TV channel called C-SPAN. Now, this is the equivalent in our country of Michael Jackson performing on BBC Parliament. It's quite cool, actually. I think it's cool. And for copyright reasons, they only show the first minute or so of each performance. They were allowed to show a small part of each performance, but they didn't show the performance in its entirety. And so, consequently, Michael Jackson's performance of Dangerous, a small clip, was released and broadcast on C-SPAN on a TV show called American Politics. Again, I just think this is so cool. It's like BBC Parliament. By the way, there's some really cool shows on BBC Parliament because it shows you the workings of Parliament. There's lots of little clips. It's quite fun. Anyway, side point. If you're not in the UK, ignore what I just said. Now, it was broadcast on C-SPAN, but only a small section. Now, Michael Jackson performed 3 songs, so obviously we missed out on the rest of the show. However, recently there was a leak obviously from the sound desk, the mixing desk. Somebody must have recorded the show and they released it online. They leaked it. So you can get some information about the show just by listening to it. But we're going to really take an in-depth look at everything. Today's going to be more of an overview, and then our next video we're going to look in depth. Okay, so number 1, Bill Clinton introduced Michael Jackson. Now this was a very interesting introduction because what happened was Chris Tucker left the stage and everybody left the stage and Bill Clinton came on to introduce Michael Jackson. But what happened was he didn't know when to start his introduction because he wasn't given a cue. They didn't rehearse when he was to give his introduction. So what happened was he talked and talked and talked, and he talked with the audience. He basically said, I don't know when to start because I don't cheat and I don't have an earpiece telling me what to do. And he said, Chris Tucker's left me, so I'm going to keep talking for a bit and I'm going to keep talking. It was quite interesting, actually. And then what happened was a chord came from the guitarist, or Brad Buxer, backstage, and he's like, wait a minute. He's like, if that was you telling me to start, play it again. And then they all listened, and there was no chord. So then he carried on talking. And then he's like, right, guys, I think I'm going to start the intro. If the curtain doesn't go up and Michael's not ready, then basically keep clapping, it will happen. So then he started the introduction, and that was the introduction which was broadcast on C-SPAN. It was from that point on, it was a brilliant introduction. He introduced Michael Jackson, and then Michael Jackson came on. So, if you've seen Dangerous, you might realize that he's got his 7 dancers, his 6 principal dancers, and the Spiker Girl, and you might see there's no band and there's nothing going on behind him. However, don't let that mislead you. Brad Buxer did perform, and he did have his sound station, his keyboards, and all the rest of it, and it slid on afterwards. So it was after the dance, they had the dance space. Brad Buxer and his team came on from the side on the platform, so parts were performed live later on in the show. In addition to this, Dave Navarro of the Red Hot Chili Peppers also performed in the show with his solo in Black or White, and I thought it was a brilliant solo. I really did. Very exciting performance. Now, there were rumours that there was going to be an additional song, We Are the World, but I think they're unfounded, and the reason for that is because there was already a We Are the World introduction during Heal the World, so I don't see how they would have added that on, and I thought it was a pretty well-rounded performance anyway. But they did have the history teaser playing on the screen, a massive screen behind, and previously, if you've watched the clip, you won't realise that there is a massive screen behind, just like on the history tour, but it's behind the curtain. So they did perform 3 songs. We're going to do an in-depth analysis of everything in the next part of this video. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of an overview of the show. More to come. Please subscribe. See you soon.